in with the latest developments so far on all facets of the country, right? Looking at the political pillar, the economy, and of course the social pillar as well. My name is Dibala, and I trust you had a lovely restorative night, ready to face this day, and of course to usher in your weekend as well. We'll be joined this morning by Kipruto Rapkiro, who's already in studio with us. Also, we're joined by Haman Manyora, Dr. Martin Olo, and also we'll be joined by Gitila Naituli, amongst others, as we continue to discuss what is happening in the country. But before we even plumb deeper, let's see how the weather will be today. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Daily Nation and the Standard and the Star. But we begin with the bold paper. The making of a rogue police is what is on the front page of the Standard today. Japhet Koome is accused of insensitivity after claiming the opposition hired corpses to make it appear police had killed protesters. However, the Inspector General is under fire from Azimio, the bereaved, civil society, and morticians. The story is tucked away on page 4 of the Standard this morning. And also, Granny is keen quizzed on puzzling death. 8 people, including 3 relatives of the 84-year-old found dead in her compound, were questioned by DCI as probe continues on what police say is possible murder. And this is a story that is quite heart-wrenching. We ran this story for you in the course of a week, where this granny was discovered in her house dead together with her dog after 90 days. And this is a puzzle that is, everyone is trying to put the jigsaw together to get full picture. And now it's appearing she was murdered. And we'll continue with this story on page 6 of the Standard today. And also we'll ask our panelists about what they think on how we're taking care of the elderly. This following also an expose by the BBC on the PCA Thogoto Home for the Elderly, where we saw elders there being beaten. Old grandmothers being beaten is a story that is really heart-wrenching on how we're treating the elderlies and where the society is as far as just respect and honor that is due to the elderly is concerned. We don't really take and good care of them as it were, that we can even beat them, not anywhere, but on their bums. I think that was really telling on how you can beat an old 90-year-old woman on her butt. This is the Standard today. The making of a rogue police is a splash. On the side, but then we have courts busts man's hopes in condom case. A very interesting story about this man that went to court seeking compensation because apparently the condom had burst in the course of consummating, and he is now wanting the concerned company, that is Beta Healthcare, to compensate him. You can follow the story on page 3 because he also contracted sexually transmitted, that is STI. And you can follow the story on page 3 of the Standard today. But the courts denied that particular request from him, saying he was, of course, didn't do his due diligence in proving that that particular condom had burst. There was no evidence that was provided in the courts for him to actually sway the court on his side. You could read the rest of the story, but also the issue of unfaithfulness to his wife featured largely. You can follow the story on page 3 of the Standard this morning. All right, you have also the Pulse magazine that comes in handy for you every Friday. Who is boss? That's a probing question on the front page of the Standard today. And Western still holding out for jobs promise in government. That is the Standard. And the story continues on page 8, looking at the teaser there. Cost of living crisis escalates on dollar wars. That is on the business pages of the Standard this morning. Rest for EPL, Crown begins with City in pole position. The story is on page 33, 34, 35, and 36 of the Standard today. You jumped into the second page there, but you have an idea what is headlining the front page of the Standard. The Daily Nation is up next. Education for the rich is a splash. Education for the rich is all about reforms, confusion of a new funding model, and some public universities charging more than private. It is emerging. Costly. The chairperson of the Public University's Vice Chancellor's body, Professor Daniel Mugendi, says alarm over high fees is misguided, adding some students do not understand the admission letters, but the shock figures have parents and students on edge, uncertain about access to state scholarship and the new system. You have the story on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. And 30 billion shillings, that is the allocation in shillings to the Higher Education Loans Board for students' loan based on an index. Also, you have 16 billion shillings, that is the amount in shillings set aside for scholarship disbursed through the university's fund. And you have also 4,000 number of students who had applied for assistance by Wednesday out of 140,000. And 7. You can read that story, 140,107. On top here we have the flagger, or not really the flagger, but the teaser. 50 years of hip-hop from New York to Nairobi, Kalamashaka, and the rise of Kenya's pop culture. You can read all about it inside the Daily Nation this morning. Matters Academia as well is inside The Voice, focusing on education through the ages. Go down through the stream of time to get a picture of how education, especially for the women, has been streamlined and shaken into place in this country, and all that is tucked away inside the Daily Nation this morning. Also on the side there, Senator Stars Rao with top house official. Nominated Senator Gloria Orwobe faces lengthy suspension from the Senate following serious allegations against a parliamentary official that were, however, dismissed. You have the story on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. More taxes. Property owners in 6 counties face higher land rates. Treasury approves a plan by the Lands Ministry to increase land rates in Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu, Eldoret, and Kiambu in bid to raise 8 billion shillings. The story continues on page 8 of the Daily Nation. And Azimio ignites fresh row with claims of bias in fertilizer supply. National Assembly Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi alleges a state-sanctioned scheme to deny farmers in Nyanza access to low-cost fertilizer ahead of the short rains season. And the government has further reduced the price of a 50-kilogram bag of 2,500. That is to 2,500 from 3,500 to boost food production in the country. The story continues on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. The Star is up next. Our SRC gave MPs bigger pay than Ruto is a splash. Lawmakers to take home approximately 1.7 million shillings and could stretch to 1.9 million shillings for some members. The story continues on page 4 and 5 of The Star. And maybe just to give you an illustration here, how that is doled out, pay package for an ordinary MP or senator, that is monthly salary. The salary right now it stands at 725,502. Committee sitting allowance 120,000. We have camp maintenance allowance 356,525. You have mileage claim standing at 462,887. In total, the subvention will be 1,664,914 million shillings that the MP will be pocketing. This is after the revision of salaries by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. You can read all about it on page 4 and 5 of the Star. Founding Fathers KICC statue given a makeover. All this in preparation for the Africa Climate Summit that will be happening in November and September there, I should say. And sprucing up, we can see workers clean Jomo Kenyatta Monument at KICC ahead of the Africa Climate Conference next month, that is in September. On the sidebar, Kenyans with 71 million shillings for ChatGPT, that is GPT, in healthcare. It says Kenyans planning to use the ChatGPT to improve education and healthcare in the country have won up to 71 million shillings from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to roll out their plans. 5 Kenyan startups with each receiving up to 14.4 million shillings, the foundation said in a statement. And you can read the rest of the story on page 2 of the Star this morning. Complex case. Another 47 days in remand for cult leader Paul Mackenzie, and his 27 co-accused have entered Kenya's history books for the longest pre-charge detention sanctioned by a court since promulgation of the Constitution in 2010. The controversial religious leader was first arrested on April the 15th and has stayed behind bars for 117 days without being formally charged. The story continues inside the Star this morning on page 9. Taifa Leo, Raila atafutiwa mfupa, it says. Raila atafutiwa mfupa. Kenya Kwanza yataka kiongozi rasmi wa upinzani pia awe mbunge ili aweze kusukuma ajenda zake bungeni. Mazungumzo hapo upande wa serikali umesema utayapa umuhimu masuala yasiyohitaji katiba kurekebishwa. Baadhi ya mapendekezo yatahitaji kura ya maamuzi. This story continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. And also asili ya paka jini. Katika maeneo mengi ya Afrika Mashariki, mbali na kuwa mnyama wa kufugwa, paka huhusishwa na imani za kutisha. Ni imani zilizokita mizizi hasa katika maeneo ya pwani ya Kenya. You can read the rest of the details there inside Taifa Leo this morning. This is how it looks. Also chuo kikuu karo mpya ya hofisha and michezeni. Kubumbu ya EPL yaanza rasmi leo. You can follow the story on page 20 of Taifa Leo this morning. Let's look at the Business Daily, and this is how it looks this morning. Banks strike high-profile borrowers in default panic. Banks strike high-profile borrowers in default panic. Hashi Energy letters to feel wrath of lenders over 5 billion shillings, creditors and pressure to cut down bad loans. And also you have illustration of what is happening here. But let me just read it, just an excerpt here so that you can understand. It says banks are aggressively going after high-profile clients, including giant corporations and prominent billionaires, amid a fresh wave of corporate defaults that are leaving lenders with a pileup of bad loans. Ecobank is the latest to tap the services of auctioneers as it moves to sell properties belonging to Kenyan oil marketer Hashi Energy in Nairobi, Nakuru, Kisumu, Eldoret, and Mombasa counties to recover 5 billion shillings debt. And what various companies and people owe banks, we have KCB, where Pearl Beach Hotel owes KBC 5.2 billion shillings there. We have Mumias 3.50 billion shillings. DAC 1.2 billion shillings. We have Savannah Cement owing together there as a lump sum. KCB and ABSA 10 billion shillings. CMC D Ravenna 0.5 billion shillings, 0.59 billion shillings. Treasury, no, this is TransCentury. TransCentury is owing equity 4.9 billion shillings. East African Cables 1.94 billion shillings. Paul Ndungu 0.66 billion shillings. Ashi Energy, as we read earlier, it owes EcoBank 5 billion shillings. We have Cape Holdings Limited 2.82 billion shillings. And EADB, we have Dari Limited, that is Tuju, owing that particular bank 2.2 billion shillings. And you can read the rest of the details there, how banks are coming in hard on the loan defaulters there. CBK props up funding for banks hit by liquidity shortfalls. The banking sector regulator has set a new cap to guide how banks lend to one another to soften the pain for small ones caught up by liquidity, that is for small banks once caught up by liquidity shortfalls. The new interest rates corridor allows central bank to kill two birds with one stone, as the change also marks the start of inflation targeting parts of the monetary policy operations. Registrar declines release of IPP's data. The Director General of Business Registration Services has declined to divulge personal information of owners of independent power producers, publicly citing breach of Data Protection Act. And plantation firms eye richer peaking on weaker shilling. Listed plantation firms are eyeing a boost in earning this year on exchange gains on hard currency payments they receive from overseas buyers of their produce. You can follow the story on page 14 of the Business Daily. KRA is seeking 1.8 billion shillings from Naivas supermarket stake sale. That is another story that you can follow inside the Business Daily this morning. I will show you what we have in Uganda, Tanzania, and of course the rest of the international dailies as well, and give you a snippet also of what the editorial cartoonists have drawn this morning for us, just also for our panelists to chime in. But allow me to introduce our panelists. As I mentioned earlier when we were beginning the program, I've created first time this morning with Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who is a governance and policy analyst. We have with us as well Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, who is the party leader of the Green Thinking Action Party. Herman Manyora as well, a governance and policy analyst. Will be joined much later by Dr. Martin Elo, who is an advocate of the High Court and also who is the head of Department Public Law, Daystar University. But let's just hear from our panelists this morning, beginning with Kipruto Arap Kirwa. Good morning, good to see you.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
You've been looking at the week, so you'll just give us a snippet of how the week has been, much later. And also, I want to welcome the Green Thinking Action Party leader.
Thank you.
How are you?
Thank you.
Always in green.
See you here. And keep up the good work, by the way, that you continue to do.
Thank
Every early morning you're up here doing stuff. You know, blessings shall always follow you, my brother. You are one of the unsung heroes of this country. Keep doing good.
Thank you.
By the way, I don't expect to be paid enough. God will do it for you. That I can assure you. God will bless you.
All right, let's hear from Herman Manyora. Good morning.
Morning, show.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning to our viewers.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you for joining us, and of course we get to drive a show with us as well, and we want to hear much that has been happening. But there is this heart-wrenching story that we just want to run you by, where 8 people, among them sons of Leah Njeri Njuguna, the Thika grandmother, whose body was found 9 months. If we may run the auto cue for me, so that we can actually, after her death, have been lined up for grilling by DCI homicide investigators at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, headquarters in Kiambu. The badly decomposed body was found under a mango tree by neighbors and the police who had to clear bushes on June 20th. And as our investigative reporter, Francis, explains, the DCI homicide investigators are yet to verify a video made by Caroline Njeri, the granddaughter, that is allegedly done to the uncle, or who happens to be one of the sons of the deceased. Leon Njeri, of course, made this particular video. We'll run you by that story shortly, but it's a very heart-wrenching story on how we are treating our elderly in this country. Let's just listen to that particular story as we pick the brains of our panelists.
The investigations into the death of Leon Njeri has now been taken over by homicide investigators from the DCI headquarters. The investigators have a task to connect the badly decomposed body found under a mango tree by neighbors and the police who had to clear bushes on June 20th. Caroline Njeri, who was the first family member to enter her grandmother's house on the day she was discovered dead outside her home in Thika, landless area. The investigators at the same time wanted to verify from the granddaughter the authenticity of a video released on Wednesday showing inside her grandmother's house at the time of her death.
Well, this is Shosho's bedroom. I think you can see how messy it is. And all the sockets have been plucked out.
Njeri was also said to be very close to the grandmother and was a more frequent visitor than his uncles. The family first had an informal meeting with the investigators, where the police briefed the investigators on the history of the family and some of the deep-seated issues that saw retired teacher and businesswoman live a solitary life in her home.
This looks like foreplay. I don't think Shosho will ever destroy her telly like this. Electronics are gone. The microwave is missing. This is a sideboard.
The Thika DCI investigators' preliminary investigations reveal that Leah Njeri, 82 years, could have died of natural causes while alone at her Thika home. Some family members have, however, disputed these findings and have been pushing for the investigations to be moved from Thika DCI to the headquarters. Close sources to KTN told us that the homicide investigators are following different narratives provided by family to unravel the murder mystery. The investigators are waiting for the report from the government chemist to confirm if the samples presented to them, including bones, are human body parts. Odi Francis, KTN News, Nairobi.
A very heart-wrenching story there, and still being investigated by the police officers. I just wanted to maybe just broaden the discussion as well, and you might want to grab a copy of the Standard this morning just to get much details. And there is a special report on page 6 of the Standard, Granny's keen quiz on puzzling death. Maybe to just begin with you, Dr. Green. You've read the story, you've watched the videos, you've also seen some of the stories of how elderly are being treated there on BBC as well. Where is the society when we're looking at the social pillar and where we're looking at the elderly and how they're being treated as well in this epoch of time that we are in? Issues of stipend has not been, very streamlined. Sometimes it's there, it's missing, but especially this particular death, where even after 90 days, she continued to receive M-Pesa money. The son had not seen the mother for those particular 90 days. There's such a disconnect. Sometimes also children and their parents, even our grandmothers, we tend not to visit them, our elderly. Let's just begin from there.
Heart-wrenching is not enough in what we are seeing out of the stories that have been going through the media in the recent times. You remember, it is just the other day we saw a story of a 90-year-old who has been chased away from her home by her grandchildren. It is just the other day that we also had a situation of BBC covering the PCA, the Goto home, and how the elderly are being mistreated. And here we are, of a 90-year-old who has been, 84-year-old who has been neglected to death, and so many. It just brings out the wrongs, the ills in our society, that we do not honor our parents, and therefore the result, even as in the Bible, is the same. And there needs to be a way that the government, because there are relevant institutions that are able to match what is supposed to be done. But the question is, how many are they going to take care of? How many people are in the care homes that you can be able to deal with? It's a societal challenge that we need to deal with, that we are fearing, we are running away from our responsibilities, that we are neglecting our parents and therefore the old, because it can't. I mean, I watched the BBC story, I couldn't help. My tears were just running out. And I must compliment and congratulate media houses, people, individuals who are making such reports so easy and in a way that they should be done. But it should be deeper. What is happening to our society? Because it is beyond just the care of, I mean, if these old people here don't have their children, or they have not invested in that, and it's a situation that you can easily find yourself in, and we need to pray, and prayer is not enough. We need to act. Action must be very specific. It is the investment of what we are doing in our society that needs to count with this.
Indeed. How about Manyora?
Yeah, sometimes back, I was commissioned by one of the counties in the country, a consultant, to do a study on the elderly. It was together with the PWD and orphans. But while doing literature review, I found that France and China had gone through similar instances like this. I think it is France where, after some harsh winter, many old people are found dead long after they had died, because of the harsh winter. And they had been neglected. Children don't visit the old. I think it's quite a while back, more than 6-7 years ago. I don't know whether I'm right, but I think there was some law that was passed in those two countries. There's one in China, I think, and one in France, basically because of the same. But this is basically the testimony of what is happening as we are all rushing after what we are calling civilization. Parents are spending all of us are spending all the time chasing money. We have no time for our families, for our wives, for our children. And the only point we would need to remember is that after all the struggle Kiru has gone through, you get to like my age now and you begin to see what Solomon was saying. It's all vanity. There is nothing. All these things we die to have. You even kill your competitors to make profit or to get promotion. You spend all your time away from home making money and trying to build your career like a lawyer. When you get to my age, you realize it's all useless. It's all vanity. There's nothing. I think, therefore, let's try and be Africans a bit. We are running away from being Africans. We are thinking it is so great being westernized. I have seen even weddings, when children are having weddings. It is so modernized, so westernized. Even the joy of our parents taking part in the wedding has been removed from the whole arrangement. They take these exclusive places. There's one in Gigiri, there's another one two in Karen, I don't know where. Invite only 100, no presents. If you want a present, they direct you, don't bring a fridge, we have this. Then leave them in the supermarket and bring a voucher. This rushing to be modern is a waste of time.
What's wrong with that?
I think we are just... So basically, all what I'm saying, because of that,
Good life.
that old woman at home who gave birth to Manyora has not seen her. Okumani is dead. You don't even know your mother is alive. your father is there alive. You never visit them. If you are kind, now those kind ones, good ones like Allah, they send money. Money can't replace you. So I think we should advise each other. We don't need a law for this. I don't think we need a law, but I think it is time for reality check. Let us try and also think about ourselves.
Indeed.
What are we going to be another 10, 15, 20 years? Let me tell you the bar as I wind up. If we go the way we are going to move our parents and us, like in my age, we are going to be moved into old people's homes faster than you may imagine. In another 10, 15 years.
That's where we're
Sisi
headed.
wote tutakuwa kwa old
What
people's
is wrong
homes.
with that?
Yeah. And you've seen the way also the PCA Togoto has been
it's
treating
not
the old women.
Allah
that
is
are-
saying what's wrong with that.
Yeah, a church organization where we saw all the the
A man
elderly.
must, I want to tell Allah is saying what's wrong with that. A man must live for something. Something must count. One of the things you live for is your children. To see your children grow to become good people. Okay? The children too must live for something. To see their father, Dr. Green here, live a happy old age. I mean, you must live for something. We are not animals. Yeah.
Dr. Martin Olo.
You know, Dibal, I am awake. I'm awake. I want to confirm because he seems to be thinking I'm still asleep.
Yes. Welcome.
The society is changing, Dibal, and realities are here. Some of the things we are seeing today haven't just happened, they have been happening over time. He is making a lot of noise. The people who go to the village have remained like him because first of all, he doesn't even believe in taking a flight. He believes in driving to the village. He goes there with nothing, but he comes out with so many things. He comes with bananas, he comes with potatoes. He actually loots the village. and that's the 2,000 bob. And then he says, I have helped the villagers. So these villagers, are also interested in having an understanding that life is changing. Today, the people who could afford to go maybe up country very regularly can't because of cost of living and so on. And because of circumstances and because of lifestyles, it is not out of sight to even imagine that we're going to have to look at different ways to take care of our old people. I had the privilege of taking care of my dad. My dad died at 97 years. But for about 20 years, and by the way, there were many of us. He had 3 wives, and therefore we were many. But for about his last 20 years, he was like my responsibility as a person. He was sick. Whenever he was sick, I would take him to hospital, and whenever he needed help, I was available. Not that there were no others, but others did not think he was available. He was around. So the circumstances are that for some reason, if you are lucky, and the way these days people are doing it, you want to have 2 children, and then they all want to go to America. So once they've gone to America, you will never keep up. You remain here. They'll send money they believe will take care of you. And they'll give you a worker to take care of you, and that may not even work. So that replacing family is not going to be easy. So the bottom line is that we have to accept that things are changing. Our own lifestyles are changing. When Herman was talking about weddings that are exclusive and weddings that are invites only, there's nothing wrong with that. He's mourning village issues where you take a wedding to the village and everybody comes and they bring you furias.
That's a joy.
They bring you furias and sometimes nothing. So these kids of ours don't want it to be taken to the village.
They don't want duplication.
No,
they have a lot of
they have already
thermos flasks.
Yeah. So why do you bring them to Sufuria? Everybody brings glasses.
Clocks. Yeah.
So they tell you vouchers that if you want to get us this, get us that, get us. That is the modern society, Herman. The one you are still reminiscing has gone. And so when you think of vanity, you have reached the place where Solomon reached. But for him, he had achieved everything. He had concubines, he had wealth, and he realized nothing. None of those things are. For me, I'm still looking for those things.
You're looking for them?
I'm looking for money. Still trying to see how I survive after when I'm 90. So I'm thinking about those things. I want to reach like Mheshimiwa Kirwa here, where, you know, when he wakes up in the morning, he takes a newspaper, he reads, he goes and looks at cows, they are milked, he has about 100 liters. Then when he bought a pesa too, and then he can come to the show here in the morning. After this, he goes, takes tea, and he sleeps. He takes time. You know, he's busy.
No, he's working on his thesis. What do you mean?
It's actually that laziness that is making him not work on his thesis, because he's taking life so easy. Nothing is pushing him anymore. So today I was planning not to be tough with him. When I'm in a suit, I'm a bit nice. I don't want to attack him.
I wanted just to also bring maybe this aspect where we have the elderly still, because we are talking about housing. And it has been also, maybe even when you're doing your study, the structure of the houses that you've built, sometimes they're not really amenable for the elderly.
Upstairs,
we have upstairs and the 3-story houses and the stairwells as well. How then do we, even as we are trying to streamline housing, the project itself, are we taking cognizance of the elderly that sometimes will not be able to trip up the stairs as well?
Has just converted his garage into a bedroom now.
He's converted.
The only one which is available down the ground floor. He can't go up.
He can't go up. So those are some of the things you never think as a young man. Sometimes, when will you be still?
Our professionals should be thinking along those lines.
They should be advising, yes, and telling the elderly as well, because there are many injuries of the elderly. When it comes to the housing that they're living in, they cannot. It's not very suitable for them as the age.
We do have a national policy.
We do have a national policy
on disability, because the national disability policy requires that we think through in commercial, residential, educational, and so on. The thing that we now need to do is to push all professionals involved in the sector to think it through. And as you've said, when I was building my house, I was very young and I was very ambitious, and I was seeing things like steps down there, and then I was seeing upstairs.
And the streaming between.
At that time, I was not imagining that I'll reach where Herman has reached. Where if you see one flight, you don't even want to take it, because you don't know whether you'll go up or whether you'll be able to come down. But because those things come, and so we must be able to provide for them. Those steps that we put, very nice in terms of
accidents in the washrooms as well.
In the washrooms. So we are suffering our status is such that we are now suffering because of failing to take care of some of these things. But that said, it's a development. Every society gets to a level where it sorts itself because of the circumstances it finds itself in.
Indeed.
You see, as I said earlier on, some of these issues come up so that it is a warning for us. It is a responsibility of every individual to take care of their parents. But taking care is also relative. Because if you as a parent, you did not invest in taking care of your children or taking care of the society or doing something, there is what will follow that is almost obvious. But we are now talking of deaths. We are talking of people who are being beaten by the people who are supposed to be taking care of them. But there is a bigger group of people who are dying because of stress. They are not being taken care of. They are not being given the medication that they are supposed to be getting. They are not being supported by anybody. You can imagine how many people are suffering from these lifestyle diseases, and at that age where you need medication, insulin here, some pressure medication, and you have no money, and people around you have no money, and the money that is being given to you, ile pesa ya wazee, it ends up just being used in a different way. Sometimes you need to even imagine how we can create KEMSA or recreate KEMSA, and even maybe divert some of the money to be able to avail medication for these old people at the right places and doing the right thing. These are things that we need to start thinking, but it starts on being responsible. What are you doing to others? Just like the Bible will say, do unto others the way you would want them to do unto you. We have people who have real issues with their parents, real issues. They feel that they were neglected, so they feel nothing when they don't care about that. But then, because they are there, and we are going to have those kind of people, what plans do we have as a government to ensure that these people are taken care of, in as far as medication is concerned, in as far as activities that are because mainly it's about education actually. How you bring up these people, what are they supposed to do if they find themselves in such a situation. But it's so serious that one death here, another one there is not enough. We need to do deeper analysis and try and identify what needs to be done in our society.
Indeed. When we're talking about further issues, that also is very key, that we neglect them because we feel like maybe they were not really there for us when they were growing up. But I wanted just also to broaden the way I've raised the issue of the housing project and the aspect of the one size fits all cannot be admissible at this particular point. We should broaden maybe our understanding on the housing needs. Maybe an assessment should be done. The public participation, what will suit the Kenyans in terms of the housing, that it's not just maybe a story buildings, bungalows as well, taking cognizance of the elderly.
Well, it's unfortunate that our society is fast changing, the way Dr. Martin Olo has said. With it is a lot of dynamics that we may find it hard to reverse. Of course, to have a storied house in the village is supposed to be magnificent, it's a status symbol. But when you look at it critically, how many times, coming down the stairs is actually harder than going up the the staircase. I realize now, having built a house that have my bedroom upstairs, ostensibly to look at elevated view of your farm and look at your cows from the bedroom. But now it is becoming a problem. It's becoming a problem increasingly because, but thank God, there are 2 or 3 bedrooms downstairs that I may have to relocate sooner than later. And it is also a product of our own social dynamics. Our society is getting increasingly violent and less caring. The other day I went to see a friend, not Martin Olo, in one of the estates. And I realized that the friend had not arrived home by the time. Then I saw a boy riding a bike. And when he got to the destination, almost next to the door, he was banging that bike so many times. And my reflection was, this is our society. There is a lot of violence bottled up in people. A lot of violence bottled up in society. We are violent against each other. And that's why even when you hear these talks among politicians, there is so much violence. And every day when somebody is making a statement, he does it with a lot of vigor, in a way that you realize there is a problem this person has. Compared to our brothers in Tanzania or even Uganda, their language of speech, even when they are abusing you, they are using softer words, and their voices are less harsh than we have in Kenya. The other day I saw some statistics in the paper that mental illness now is increasing. It was 25%. That is, for every 4 people, one of them has mental illness, which means
one of us here is bonkers.
Now it has gone up to 40%.
I will not confirm that on this one.
Now it has gone up to 40%, that for every 10 people, 4 of them have some kind of mental illness. It is worrying, and we need to take stock of some of this, because it tells you how society is changing in Kenya and what we need to do, what are the underlying reasons. Part of it is economic reasons, part of it is the way we've been socialized, that we don't care about the other person. And it depends, like, this village talk. In a country like Ethiopia, those people in Addis Ababa live in Addis Ababa. They don't go to the village. They don't know where their village is. Their village is in Addis Ababa. In Kenya, you find somebody has more than 3 homes. One in Kitui, one in Nairobi, then he has bought a piece of land in Kajiado, and another one in Malindi. All these, really, at times when you take stock, they mean nothing. Of course, our investments in more than 3 counties, but at times when you look at it, when will I consolidate?
Yeah.
When will I get value
Even
for
enjoy
this?
it.
Yes.
When will I enjoy? Yeah.
So looking back, you can say vanities of art,
Vanity
vanities of
is the same.
vanities.
Solomon was right.
Was right.
Yeah. And for your information, my father had 6 wives.
6 wives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we
He
had
was,
been
he was
well.
a strong man.
Yeah.
Any intentions?
No, I'm not
Even
declaring.
he's not even near that. So, wachana na yeye.
Okay, talking on an interesting note, because I think we are here maybe we normally come to highlight some of the ills that we have in the society, the goods as well, and the uglies. On the issue of infidelity, we may see the Standard. We have a man who had taken, gone to court, and he's on page 3 where the story is. He'd gone to court actually to challenge what really happened to. I'm trying to be very careful because also this is a morning show.
Yeah.
And we have families who are watching us as well, and of course the young ones are on the table as well.
Yes.
But he had taken the Bitter Health company to court because apparently one of the utilities that he was using during a consummation happened to have ruptured, and now he contracted sexually transmitted infection, and so he's seeking compensation, and he wants he's roping in KRA and also the company itself because of this. But the courts have made determination on this. If you read the story, it's very interesting. It's in the Standard. You may recommend just
Page 3 of the Standard.
Page 3 of the Standard.
The courts
Yeah.
are very right. They dismissed it.
The courts are
and
right.
gave him a lecture.
Huh?
They gave him a lecture.
They gave him a lecture
Yeah, they-
on
they gave him a-
unfaithfulness.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
So-
we can begin from there just to showcase where we are as a society when it comes to unfaithfulness, and because this really contributes to what we're discussing largely, or the social pillar as well, that it affects the Edenic design that God really had for the family, a man and a woman, in confinement of monogamy. I know we are in a polygamous society as well, maybe so to speak, but when it comes to issues like this, where you have even the temerity to take this particular case to the courts, knowing maybe to come to the public glare, your wife will know of your whereabouts, and challenging the courts to prove.
Well, actually, that is the issue.
That is the issue.
That you can go out there, find yourself in trouble, and have the guts to sue.
Where is the conscience?
Yeah, where is your conscience? Where is your sense of what is right and what is wrong? I mean, you should be somewhere confessing and somewhere, atoning for that, so that you are able to make up with your spouse and your maker. Now, the problem you have here is that he has the audacity to even sue the company because he seems to have had a problem in a place where he should not have been in the first place. So now, what it tells you, of course, is the level at which we have debased our conscience, that we are not able to be able to say that this is right and this is wrong. We think that anything and everything goes. And this is, I actually like the way it's reported. I would love to read the whole ruling, but the court was not amused and said, look, you are not truthful.
So he never adduced the evidence itself to prove to the court that this is rupture. So he take the element and he said this is how it was ruptured.
Yeah.
But that's not important.
But the fact is that.
But
That's not important.
No, I remember when you're talking about the O.J. Simpson case.
Yeah, the
Right.
knife.
What was it?
I
The
know.
glove was it?
Yes.
That actually determined the whole case.
Let me
The
say-
glove was not fitting.
Let me say
So
this.
this is where he failed to present the actual evidence.
That may be the case, but the problem with this case, as I read, is the court allowed itself to be moved by the sentimental and the emotional aspect of the whole thing.
Who? The court.
Yeah. Whether a man was unfaithful to his wife or not does not really make
It should
the
not be a
merit
moment
the
of
case
moralizing.
any less.
Yes.
Yeah. And you see, it's not a question of moralizing. The court went astray. Let me say this.
The court went astray.
Yeah. They should have dealt with the issue.
They should have
And
dealt
in
with the
dealing
issue.
with the issue of whether or not this particular paraphernalia was of good quality as to serve the purpose. That was the case. Not whether the man had 3, 4, 5 things elsewhere with other women. That was not the case. It was the case, this particular paraphernalia, this particular instrument, was it fit for human use? That was what the court was about to determine. And now that brings me to our courts. I've been asking our courts to be a little more innovative and creative. Our courts, what they do, the bench in our law just, the judge just sits there, or 3 of them, they just listen to a law speaking English and the other lawyer speaking English until the end. They never intervene. Courts should be proactive. In situations such as ours, I want our courts to be proactive and not to hide under the doctrine or the practice of adversarial versus what? No, nobody.
Inquisitorial.
Yeah, nobody ever said we must be like that. So if I would expect the court said, by the way, morality aside, this is a serious issue. Could it be true that actually people are bringing condoms from whatever we wanted to call them paraphernalia from Uganda? Even Ningimana Nzeki was referring to them by name, although you were saying condom. You remember, yeah? Yeah. Could it be true that people are exporting wrong products from Uganda that can harm our people? The court should have ordered that some of these samples of this product be tested. That's the kind of court I'm looking at. Not just sitting there and saying you should have brought the evidence. No, you move from the minor evidence, you go to a higher level and look at the substance.
So you take the samplings of all.
Yes, the court would have ordered sampling of that product.
I don't want this to go.
That's the court I'm looking for. Not this one of Kenya law, where they just speak English in court.
The court is looking for is in France, not.
No, we want it. We want it.
Don't say we want. No. It's called legal systems. In September. Come to my.
You are a lawyer and you know how the English law of Nini came into being.
Come to my first year class when I'm talking of legal system. The legal system we have in this country says that courts are not part of the dispute. What courts do is sit aside, listen to.
We can't go in that direction.
That is our system.
But Justice Mutunga.
Wait.
Justice Mutunga. These are our lawyers here. They think we don't know law.
No. You should know.
Justice Mutunga. In Raila 1, what did he do?
No,
he did exactly what I'm saying.
We should, because we are here and we are also educating the public.
Yes.
Our system courts are not part of.
No.
Yeah. No,
Where is it
our
written?
system.
Where is it written?
No, that's a
all right. So where is it written that it must be like that? It's not there. Courts are just lazy.
It's not. It's not.
When I'm watching proceedings in places like America,
courts do not contribute.
When I'm watching proceedings in places like America, or at the Hague ICC, you see an active bench. It is following. It can even make the proceeding shorter by asking questions to Kirwa, so that Kirwa may stop pursuing the line he's pursuing because he's being asked, how about in the alternative? That's the court I'm looking for. Not a court that just sits because nobody has adduced a certain evidence that this thing that bust.
No! All right, we need to wind up.
Let's take a short break. Let's look at it this way. One, we are a society that has an issue with everything and everyone. And the fact that such a matter is creating a discussion to this level, where we are talking about burst condoms and we are talking about all these things, it means there is a big issue that is underlying which needs to be dealt with. Two, there must be a reason for an institution like Kenya Bureau of Standards to be supported financially, to be capacitated to the level that they can be checking on quality of products, because these products have been brought to be used by Kenyans and they are doing all efforts to get the best that they can. So it needs to be checked, and such institutions need to be supported, and where they can be able to deal with issues in the best way possible, they deal with them. Professor has talked about the issue of the courts of justice and being lazy. I think that may not apply here. We need to not to generalize the inefficiency. If there is, it should be to individuals. Neither should we imagine that bad things come in from Uganda. If something is not working best here, it is also not working best in Uganda. And therefore, we need to deal with the underlying societal challenges and focus on what really need to be dealt with at individual. And it's all about responsibility. By the time that an issue is getting to the court on a matter of condom, there is something that is extremely wrong. And even how we bring it out, for what reason, apart from just sensationalizing and creating drama, is what must be avoided going forward.
Fantastic. And of course, it's not on the point of family control. If you read the whole story, it's about this gentleman who met a stranger. And this is where the rupture really happened, and he contracted the STI. But just generally speaking and broadly speaking, it's just depicting on where the society is, especially on matters that are involving conjugal issues and consummation of also our marriages, where what had been put in place to be observed by mankind is not really observed as it should. And that's why we have all these cases now going awry, because what was intended before is not what is being followed right now. We'll take a short break. When we circle back, we shall look at what is happening on the current state of politics, just harking back to the week, how it has been. Matters academia as well. It will be very expensive also to join the public universities. And by the way, there are two gentlemen, lawyers, who have moved to the courts as well to challenge the funding model of the universities, especially where PhD and masters is concerned. They are saying the HELP Act does not envision that you should be getting a second-class upper